Can see anything. Um, Good evening, everybody. I hope everybody can hear us okay. I'm just want to make sure for housekeeping purposes, everybody is on mute. So that we've got smooth audio. So thank you very much for everybody taking their time to jump on this call today. I promise the next 45 minutes, we're going to be extremely powerful. And what I'm going to invite all of you to do is make sure you have a pen and paper. So as I'm going through the presentation, you can write down some notes. And also, my colleague, Botuan, has also emailed you two different handouts. The first one is the 10-point financial health check. So as I'm going through our presentation today, I am going to ask you to actively answer those questions for yourselves, and I'll continue reminding you. And the second one is the actual action plan. You can use that. I think it's our 5 or 6 items. You can use that as an actual action plan for yourself. As I believe that, taking courses, whether it's financial planning courses or any other courses in any other areas of your life, are very powerful, but it's even more powerful if you can put some actions behind it and see real tangible results. For those of you who are joining us, just want to very quickly take a moment and introduce myself, introduce my colleague, and take you through our incredible presentation today. And I'm having a little issue here in terms of clicking through to the next slide. Just a few words on myself. I'm a speaker and author, authored a book in terms of, it's called The $1,000,000 Difference. And I've been teaching in different varieties over the last 20 plus years. I've actually built my financial planning practice, teaching retirement planning, financial planning, and estate planning courses throughout GTA, through the school boards, and also doing some consulting for different pension boards. So I've been in active private practice for 20 plus years, primarily assisting families and business owners in creating financial plans that make sense to them, and then also ensuring that we actually facilitate those plans for them and then oversee the results over the number of years that we've been working with our clients. I've done, quite a bit of work in the community as well. Created as a yoga instructor as well. I've created kind of an event that combines wealth and wellness, and I'm very passionate about both. I've authored, as I mentioned, the $1,000,000 Difference book, but I've also authored a more of a holistic financial wellness book with a financial psychologist talking about financial trauma and how it integrates into realistic steps to, kind of going through the trauma, but also on the other hand, being able to create financial abundance for yourselves. So as a speaker and an author, I'm very passionate to pass this information on and make sure that yourselves and all your families take the necessary steps to create financial abundance. So what we're going to do today, before I go on, I am affiliated as of November officially under the Desjardins Financial Independent Network as a financial advisor and an insurance broker at the same time. So what we do within Simplicity, we provide financial education like we're providing today. We also provide fee per hour and fee for service financial planning. And then to facilitate those plans, we've partnered with Desjardins Financial Independent Network in order to provide whether it's the investment facilitation of the financial plans or the insurance facilitation. I also have and work with an extensive network of accountants and lawyers who can assist our clients in terms of tax filing and some of the legal requirements that we're going to go through as well today. Today, I'm being joined by Botuan, who's joined me about a couple of weeks ago as a young, eager financial advisor here at the branch at Desjardins Financial. And he's really here to also assist all of yourselves as well to make sure we're getting value out of this conversation. He's going to be doing some follow-up with all of you. Our conversations, or this particular conversation, also would include a complimentary consultation with us. So we offer, a 45 minutes to almost an hour consultation. We can do it through Zoom like this, where we would ask you to fill out essentially this 10-point financial health check that we're going to go through throughout our course today. And based on that, we can have a conversation, where are the gaps and what we need to do in order to meet those gaps. So Batuan's role in this is assisting me in facilitating these kind of meetings, but also making sure that there is adequate follow-up. And if you do want to engage with us in the multitude of ways you can engage with us, we're also available for that. Both of us are located out of the Desjardins Financial offices here at Dixie and Eglinton in Mississauga, just kind of an FYI. And as I really quickly mentioned, Simplicity being a firm that really lays out the steps between where you are today financially to where you want to go. What are your goals? What are your dreams? What are you trying to achieve? Really breaking it down into tangible steps and laying out what has to happen from in all your areas in terms of money. So we're going to go through all those areas. Here is our financial planning process. Just to give you a perspective, we talk first and foremost, we talk about determining your current financial situations. We have a deep conversation in terms of what are your goals? What are your stops around money? Having some of a psychology background as well, oftentimes I will ask you questions like, what is the drive for you to achieve your financial success? Or what is the definition of your financial success? And we're going to tap into some of the emotions around that as well. After we do that, we really dive into the details around what is your current situation, and then derive a very detailed plan on your behalf in terms of what has to happen. Usually the plan includes sort of a 30 and 90 day action plan, whether it's you taking all the actions, whether it's something you're going to offload potentially to us as well. Here's all the services and solutions we provide for our clients. We talk, as I mentioned, I do a lot of work in retirement planning. So we do retirement planning, goal setting, pension review oversight. We talk about strategic solutions to maximize your retirement income and pension income. I do a lot of pension consulting as well when I have clients who are getting packaged out or moving towards retirement. On a cash flow solution conversations, we might talk about how do we minimize your expenses? What are your debts? What type of debts? How do we save for your first house? Talking about mortgage refinancing and different lending solutions. We also get into conversation in terms of different types of investment products out there. We have a whole curriculum of programs and educational resources that specifically talk about what are the products out there? How do I make sense out of it? We do discuss estate planning. We do talk about insurance solution. How does insurance and estate planning play into the overall financial picture? And obviously, we talk a lot about tax reduction strategies. So today in our conversation, we are going to go through a lot of these pieces, and it's going to allow you to actually walk away with a very tangible action plan. So let's really get into the core of our conversation today. Few last little notes. As we're talking, if you do have a question, normally I'm used to doing these live, so there is usually kind of an interaction in terms of questions that I'm happy to answer. Batuan is actively here right beside me. He's going to be taking those questions, and I'm going to make sure that we answer those questions live. I'm going to hold this presentation for no longer than 45 minutes, allowing us the last 10 to 15 minutes to really be an opportunity to interact. So if you do have questions and they're a little bit more complex than a simple one sentence, if you want to hold off to the end, just make sure you write it out. And then we'll ask you to turn on your mic so you can ask that question specifically, and I'll be more than happy to answer that as well. So without further ado, I'm going to jump right into the points, the 10 points we're going to talk about. And for me, when we're talking about how do we check in if we are financially well, it's no different than going to see a doctor, and the doctor will do your blood pressure, your temperature, sort of the basic health check. This is something very similar. And I do this with my own clients once a year, where I go through this very similar process in checking in with them, which areas of their finances need to be fine-tuned, adjusted, or maybe everything is in order because we've already put in the groundwork and we don't really need to do anything. But it is very important, even if you are working actively with a, phenomenal financial planner, or a financial advisor, or, anybody in that space, it doesn't really matter. You want to make sure you go through these questions for yourself and really ask yourself, are those things being looked after? So as I'm going through each point, you can go through that handout and answer each question for yourself. So let's start with number one. Actually, sorry, one more thing. This course, as I originally designed it, I think an important thing to acknowledge is what is so in terms of financial education right now. And the challenge and a blessing at the same time is the wealth of knowledge. You can any topic around money, you can essentially type in into Google and you're going to get a multitude of answers. The challenge with that is sometimes it becomes an overwhelming amount of information. And how do we process that information and how do we know what applies to us and what does not? Sometimes what it leads to is kind of that paralysis by way too much information. What we really try to do is take that abundance of information and structure it into a plan that makes sense so that it's not something that it's overwhelming like it might feel to many of you. So if you are in the space of, Anna, I've been online, I've learned, and it's overwhelming and I don't know where to start, you're in the right space. If you're in the space of, Anna, I've been online, I think I know what I'm doing, but I just want to check in, what's if I'm on the right track, you're in the right space. If you've already been, successfully financial planning for yourself for a number of years, but you still want to, you should still check in once a year to see where you're at the right spot. So wherever you are on the spectrum is what I'm trying to say. We're trying to take all this information and bring it into something that you can easily digest. I think we're officially ready to start, and my computer decided to be, there we go. So we're going to go through your 10 points. Again, please make sure you have your handout handy. So as I'm asking you these questions, you can check off that for yourself. So step one, first and foremost, when we talk about financial planning, where I always start is no different than going to the gym. If you go to the gym and hire a personal trainer, training is a huge passion of mine. And the first question I get asked always is, Anna, what do you eat? So it's no different than coming into seeing a financial planner or a financial advisor. And the first question they're going to ask you, how much money do you spend? How much money do you make? How much money do you spend? And oftentimes we don't even have a concrete answer to that question because maybe we're not conscious. We just have income coming in and we have expenses coming out. And every month we feel how we feel about it, whether we have lots of money left over, we don't have enough money left over. There is usually something associated with that. What I'm trying to ask here is, do you clearly understand how much money do you have coming in? And what is it that you're actually spending your money on? And if the answer is no, I am going to highly urge you to take out the action plan and put that as your number one priority. Just like if you went to the gym, if you're trying to either lose weight or get into a specific shape for a race or a competition of some sorts, what you put into your body is as important as the type of training you're going to do. I can keep and putting together financial strategies for you, but if we don't understand how your money is actually flowing through your bank accounts on a monthly basis, we're not really going to get anywhere. So how do we accomplish that? If you've never run a budget, the simplest way to do this is pull out 3 random months of your expenses. Now, where do we start even with that? As an example, if you use your debit card for everything and you have one account or 2 accounts, print out 3, the same months, obviously, random months for the last 12 months. So let's say I'm going to do maybe like a March, July, and like an October. And I'm going to do that for all of the bank accounts that I utilize to spend money in and have money coming in. Maybe I use a credit card. So I'm going to add that to the pile. And then what I want you to do is go through every single item on that report to categorize each dollar going out and each dollar going in. And if you find this like a daunting task, if you like wine, pour yourself a glass of wine. If you like a tea, make yourself a cup of tea. Make it a fun experience. Put on your favorite music. Don't make it like this dreadful thing you're trying to avoid. Make it into something that's going to empower you to be able to make great financial decisions moving forward. If you're married or in a partnership, make it a date night. Yes, I said budgeting as a date night. It is not the end of the world. And if you as a couple are committed to creating financial abundance, you definitely want to get on the same page. So understanding how much money you're bringing in and how much money you're spending is absolutely crucial. Feel free to ask questions as we're going through this. So again, if the answer is no, please, please, please make sure you put that on your number one as an item to accomplish. Moving on to step two. Let's say you have a number of debts. So the question is, are your debts structured tax and interest rate efficiently? And if you don't know what I'm even asking, put a no. If you do know, and if you're like, yes, Anna, the tax deductible loans are being tax deducted. I am paying down the most expensive interest rate loan first. Okay, now you have a structure in place. If you have no idea what I'm talking about, put a no. So let me break this down to you. When it comes to loans, you can have, I would say, actually four types of loans. First one, or the probably most expensive one, and it's not actually on here. Let me just see if we have it on here. We don't. Okay, so the first one would be sort of that cash advances, whether it's cash advances through your credit cards or kind of the money marks where you're trying to get an advance on the paycheck you're going to get. No joke, when I did the calculation on the interest rates and the fees that are charged, you're paying somewhere between 24 to 29% interest rate on those type of loans. So if you have that kind of a loan, number one, I'm going to highly urge you to look at what is outstanding and figure out another strategy to get that off and out of your life. Because literally that is putting you in a perpetual circle of debt. Because that is an extremely expensive debt. And that's what I'm referring to is do you have a structure or a plan to pay off the loans that are the most expensive? The second type of debt you can have is credit card debt, which is your regular MasterCard, Visas, whatever you have. That's usually somewhere between 12 to 18 to 19% interest rate per year. And again, be very careful because even if you leave $100 outstanding balance at the end of the month, your interest is going to be charged on the entire balance. So just be very mindful on the type of credit cards. And again, not with all credit cards, but with quite a lot of credit cards. The next type of debt you're going to have is an unsecured loan. That could be any kind of a loan that doesn't have something attached to it as a collateral. What a collateral means is that if you default on your loan, is there something that the debt issuer can sell to pay off your loan? Being a car, as an example, so a car loan would be a secured loan, or let's say a mortgage, that would also be a secured loan. Unsecured loans range in interest rate between 7 to about 12 to 15%, depending on the credit score. We're going to talk about that in a second. So unsecured loans usually are a little bit cheaper than credit cards, but again, not as cheap as anything that is secured. So going to the last bunch here, that would be your secured loans, which would be home equity lines of credits, mortgages, or car loans. And again, if the loan is secured by a appreciating asset, your interest rate is going to be a lot lower than on a depreciating asset. The difference is in the lending world, a depreciating asset, which is cars or boats, would be considered a depreciating asset. They have more risk if you default on that loan because of the fact that that asset might more likely is going to decline in value. On the other hand, your property, for the most part, it's either going to maintain its value for the most part, or it's going to increase at some kind of an interest rate. So usually a secured loan, a secured line of credit against a property is your cheapest interest-bearing loan. So the whole game plan around structuring your debt, bearing interest rate in mind, is always looking at a solution to pay off the debt that is the most expensive first, and then pay the one that is the least expensive last. Option two, figure out a way to consolidate your debt into something that's cheaper. So one strategy could be consolidating your credit card debt into unsecured loans if you don't have anything secured to utilize. Or if you have a home and you have some credit card debts, is there a way to increase your mortgage or add a home equity line of credit on it? If you have a home and you also have a money market outstanding loan, definitely figure out a way as quickly as possible to get rid of that. And if you have to put it against your property, whether it's a home equity line of credit or adding it to your mortgage. I hope that makes sense. Now, the other part that is a huge aspect in terms of the interest rates you're able to negotiate is how good is your credit. So around here, we very often discuss credit. And again, that in itself could be a full conversation for 45 minutes. And if there is a demand or need or desire for that kind of a conversation, please let us know in the chat. We'll be happy to create a conversation specifically on credit. As an example, how do we rebuild credit? What are some strategies around that? Or, any other questions you might have specifically on credit. But the bottom line is, this visual gives you an idea of what is considered good credit, what is considered fair, and what is considered poor credit. Essentially below 580, I would say, and below, you'll be having quite a hard time getting any kind of reasonable debt, like even a car loan or an unsecured loan that is, at a reasonable rate. So you definitely want to get your credit score, I would say, above the 680 mark. That's when it's considered good, clean credit. And that's when you have a little bit more negotiating power. But quite often, here is the part that most of us do not understand. What constitutes or how is our actual credit score calculated? Two key factors that make up 65% of how your credit score is calculated is the payment history and the amount owing. Let me break those two pieces down. Payment history means, are you making your payments on time? Not 1 day late, not 10 days late, but on time. And usually on time when it comes to credit means actually early. So if your payment is due on the 29th, sending your payment 1 or 2 days before that or scheduling that into your schedule would ensure the payment reaches the credit card company on time, so that your payment history, you're receiving an R1 and you're constantly paying your credit on the scheduled dates. So payment history is absolutely a critical piece to keep in mind. Automating payments, that could be one way to ensure that at least the interest is paid on a monthly basis. So, even if you automate it so the interest comes out, you can figure out how you're going to pay the principal off, but at least the interest, so your payment history is spotless. Payment history to any new lender indicates your habitual habits around treating credit. So when you borrow money, how are you treating that credit facility? Are you being honorable, meaning paying it on time? Or are you treating it as I'll pay for it when I have funds? And based on that, they'll determine whether they're comfortable lending you any more money. Second big piece is the amount outstanding. And that is a very, very, very important piece to the conversation. If you have any amount of credit available to you, and I'm talking across all your credit facilities. So let's have an example. If I have two credit cards, each of them have $5,000 credit, as an example. That means I have $10,000 outstanding to me. If I'm utilizing $10,000, I have 100% utilization of my credit, which is going to push down my credit score as much as 30%. Where you want to be in order to have the utilization not affect your credit score is below 70% of utilization of your credit. So in my example, if between my two credit cards, if I have a $10,000 credit facility, I want to ensure that I have at no point am I utilizing more than $7,000 outstanding. Otherwise, that will impact my credit score. So if you're trying to ensure that your credit score goes up, let's say you want to apply for a mortgage, you want to keep this very much so in forefront of your mind between the payment history and the amount outstanding. Then we also have things like the types of credits used. So again, lenders look at how much of it is secured versus unsecured, how much of your credit facilities are sort of the money market. So there is types of loans that or B lenders for car loans versus like a TD or RBC. So they look at all that in terms of the types of credits that you have, and they also, of course, look at your credit history. How much credit history do you actually have? So these are all very, very important pieces to keep in mind if you're trying to ensure that your credit score gets tidied up and it gets to where you want to be, which is again above that 680 mark. I hope that makes sense to all of you, and we're moving on to step 3. But as I said, credit, it could be a full conversation onto itself. And if you do have any more questions or longer questions, I'll be happy to take those towards the end of our conversation. So step 3, do you have a debt reduction strategy in place? I alluded to it a little bit in our last point, but just ask yourself a simple question. If you have debt, do you have a game plan, a strategy in place to pay it down? I'm not saying how quickly, but do you have a game plan in place? And let's break down some of these strategies. One strategy could be, if you have a mortgage as an example, to have it paid down in 25 years, which is through regular monthly or bi-monthly payments. Here, we might look at, okay, is there anything else we can do if, let's say, we want to have this mortgage paid down a little bit earlier? By switching it essentially from a monthly to bi-monthly, that could reduce the amortization of the mortgage. What else can we do? Maybe we want to look at, okay, we have a bunch of credit card debts or high interest bearing debts. Is there an opportunity to consolidate them into our mortgage? If we don't have a mortgage yet, however, we're thinking of getting into a rental property or into a home at some point, and we have a bunch of credit card debts, is there an opportunity to go in to a bank, apply for either a line of credit or a consolidation loan, so that the debts that we have will be structured in a way to be paid down? So you want to always ask yourself, do I have a strategy for the debt that I have outstanding to be declining in values versus increasing in value? And that's what I'm referring to. When I'm speaking to clients, I always look at their assets or the amount of capital they have and the amount of debts they have. And what I like to see on an annualized basis is their assets increasing and their debts decreasing. And then that to me means that you're moving forward financially on an annualized basis. And we always give it a return, a number. How much is your net worth, which is the difference between your assets and your liabilities, or your wealth versus your debts? How much is that increasing on an annualized basis? So that's what I'm referring to. And again, debt reduction strategies, there is quite a few we can be discussing, but I just want to give you guys a couple of quick ones. Next point, again, fundamental. Do you have an emergency fund in place? Literally, I cannot stress enough how fundamental having an emergency fund is. If your answer is no to this, I am going to put that on your action plan as second top item with 4 stars, please. And let me explain to you what I mean by an emergency fund. And if you don't even know what I'm talking about, please put a no and let's talk about it. So an emergency fund is essentially having anywhere between 3 to 6 months of your fixed expenses in something that's cashable and accessible. Again, if we don't know what our expenses are, we're not going to be able to figure out what is that number. It's hence the number one thing that I've asked you guys to do is look at your cash flow, your money coming in and the money leaving. The number you want to derive is the money leaving your bank account for at least essential expenses, which are housing, food, utilities, transportation. These are your essential expenses. I refer to this as a run rate. So what is your family's run rate? Let's say it's, I don't know, let's make it $5,000. So essentially, I want to make sure you have $15,000 in something that's accessible and cashable at any point. You can have it in a bank account or a high yield account. If you are comfortable, you can have it in a home equity line of credit instead, or a combination of the two. If you are self-employed, for all those of us who are running their own companies, you want to have even more of an emergency fund. Creating an emergency fund for a self-employed person is literally bulletproofing the fluctuation of being self-employed. And for a self-employed person, I would urge them to have something between 6 to 12 months, actually, because business is business and cash flow changes. But imagine if you're running your own business and you have 6 to 12 months of capital that can sustain your family sitting available. How much of a peace of mind you would have to be able to continue and focus on your business. And what happens if you don't have that? What happens is you end up going right back into debt because emergencies happened, job losses happened, cars breaking down happened, roof leaking happens, illnesses happened, family passing away overseas, you have to fly across the world. All of these things are part of our life. They're not going anywhere. They're here to stay. And there's a shocking statistic that almost 70% of the average Canadian families do not have this emergency fund in place. Therefore, they are literally one emergency away from bankruptcy. And if I did not, if you remember nothing from tonight's conversation, if I could stress this, I would be a very happy camper. I can go home and call it a day. Because if I could see every single family having an emergency fund, anxiety would drop, families would be much more cohesive. And especially if you're a business owner, your capacity to cope with everyday stress would be a lot higher because you wouldn't have this constant concern. What if I don't meet my minimum of production or revenues? I'm not going to be able to provide XYZ for my family. So please, if you do not have an emergency fund in place, created as your number 2 priority after reviewing your budget. Again, if you have any questions on emergency fund, please, please, please make sure you put it into our chat so that I can answer that. Step number 5. Again, big question here. Oftentimes I get a blank stare when I ask this question. And if you are, again, I'm not there, so I can't see you through the screen. But I'm going to ask the question. And if you have to do a twirl, dance, whatever you got to do, really ask yourself, do you have 12, 24, 36-month financial goals? And if you do, are they SMART goals? And again, if you're in any kind of consulting, HR, SMART goals is not something that's specific to financial planning. But it's very easy to take one of financial goal and really turn it into a proper SMART goal. So SMART goals are specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and timely goals. So let's go through a quick example. Anna, I want to make sure that I retire in 5 years. Okay, that's a very specific meaning. In 5 years, I want to make sure I retire. How do we measure that? Well, the only way to measure that is having the person that's asking me this question go through a retirement planning budget or retirement planning process to figure out what is the retirement income they're aiming for, what is their current situation, and do we have a gap? And based on that, we can figure out if their objective is achievable, realistic, and timely. Can this actually be achieved in 5 years? So whatever goal you have, I would like for you to really take it through this SMART goal process and write down your 12, 24, and 36-month financial goals. Another way you can put this, if you don't want to think that far in advance, what are your 2025 financial SMART goals? We can keep it to 1 year or between January to December. What are your financial SMART goals for the year? And oftentimes when I'm sitting with my clients in January, that is a question that I'll ask. And I'll get anything from not looking at me straight, a little fidgeting, to some of my clients. And I actually surprised some of my younger clients now are coming in ready to go and they have their SMART goals set, which used to be the other way around. I would have more older clients who would be ready with their financial goals. So it's nice to see that some of that education is slowly percolating. So again, if you don't have your financial SMART goals, please take some time and create them or answer no, and we can also assist you with that. Number 6, we kind of alluded to this when we chatted about budgeting, but again, we're coming really back to this notion around income and expenses. So the question is, are you able to designate appropriate resources towards your goals? So on one hand, once we have our goals set up, and in my example, the person wanted to retire in 5 years. And let's say in order to achieve that is going to require them investing, let's say $1,000 a month. Is that reasonable? And is there enough resources for them to be able to achieve that goal? And that goes back to the notion of income and expenses. So as you can see, the reason we talk about budgeting as a first thing is because this is something that we're going to keep going back to. So if we have a goal we want to achieve, we need to go back to our budget to say, okay, does our budget allow for this goal to be achieved? Another example could be, Anna, I want to make sure I'm a younger family. We have 2 young children. I want to make sure if heaven forbid something happens to us, our children are financially okay. Okay, what does that mean? We want to make sure that if something happens to us, our mortgage is paid off, our children's schooling is paid for, and let's say the husband or the wife have X amount of income on a monthly basis to compensate for the other person not being there. Okay, So that means we need to put some kind of life insurance in place, not a problem. But then we need to figure out how much on a monthly basis does this family have left over in order to put that insurance in place. And it goes right back into our budget. Once we know that amount, then we can put in the appropriate solution in order to provide what is their goal they're trying to achieve. So that's why I'm asking, do you have the resources? And if you don't have the resources, there's only two things you could do. You either increase the amount of money coming in, and what does that entail? If you're a salaried employee, that's going to be challenging unless you switch jobs. Only other option is having a secondary source of income, a part-time business, rental, anything. You really have to be creative, especially I'm finding with the housing costs and kind of the cost of living going up in general. So increasing your income is one way you can facilitate this, or two, relook at your expenses. Is there an opportunity to put a more rigid budget? You know that miscellaneous category? What is it? I'll tell on myself. I have a budget to go to Costco because I find that is one place that I spent way too much money. So I literally put a budget of how much I can spend a month on Costco. My other fun thing I love to do, I love to travel. Again, I put a budget on how much I'm allowed to spend on travel per year. Or I love to upgrade my house and buy, new couch, new fridge, change my floors, whatever I want to do around the house. Again, I put an annual budget around that so that I have a way to structure this so that I'm not overspending in one area versus the income that's coming in. So you really want to look at those two pieces and decide if this smart goal that I've set up for 2025 or for the next 2, 3 years is very important to me. And I have two variables I can play with, which is my income and my expenses. Am I going to increase my income in order to achieve my goal? And or am I going to relook at my expenses and give myself budget in different categories? Another piece to really talk about very quickly here is when we're talking about your expenses, I think it's important to mention that what I generally find is when we go around spending money using our credit cards and debit cards, we have zero emotional attachment to how much money we're spending. And that's coming in from that psychology background where I can tell you myself that is I spend money very differently if I have cash in hand. So if you're concerned that your family is spending a lot of money in groceries, which I know I have two teenage boys and my fridge is constantly being opened and I'm constantly either cooking or making food or they're constantly snacking. So my grocery expenses have went up over the last couple of years. One way to tackle that is really trim down the budget, saying, okay, if we're spending X amount on groceries, what if I give us as a family a budget for groceries? And instead of utilizing credit or debit, I'm just going to literally take out cash. And I've witnessed this when you go with that cash to the grocery store and you know you don't have anything else to fall back on, you're going to think twice of what you're going to put into your budget. Versus if you don't have cash and you have your credit card or your debit card with unlimited funds, you're just going to be like, okay, this is how much I've spent on groceries. So really being more proactive might allow you for some opportunities. Think about if you shave down, let's say your expenses are, I don't know, $6,000 a month for the whole family. If you only trim down 10% across the board, you're freeing $600 a month for allocation for other things. Maybe it's for building your emergency fund. Maybe it's for adding insurance. Maybe it's for savings towards your vacation. Maybe it's towards paying down a debt. But by trimming down 10% of expenses, you're freed up $600 in my example. So really kind of look at that closer to see what's truly going on for you. Number 7, this is also a very big one. And again, this in itself could be a full conversation. So just ask yourself very quickly, Are your savings structured appropriately to what you're trying to achieve? And again, I'm going to be very, very, very brief here. When it comes to investing, the higher return you want, you need to allow that you're going to be taking more risk. When it comes to investment products, again, this can be a conversation all to itself, and we will be having a conversation on investment products out there so that you can put everything into a bucket later on in the spring. But you can have your money sitting in something as conservative as a bank account or something as aggressive as a new startup company. Those two investments will act very differently. They will return a very different rate of return. And one is structured for short-term cash versus investing in a large company that is providing you with steady income versus a startup company will also provide you with different returns and different long-term returns. So if we're investing money for the next 30 years for our retirement, as an example, we want to make sure we're in a space that's at least keeping up with inflation. If we're investing money towards a down payment of a house that we're buying in 6 months, we want to be a lot more conservative because we cannot afford that money to fluctuate. So just ask yourself, are my savings structured appropriately for what I'm trying to achieve? And if the answer is no, then we should talk further on this. Number 8, insurance. So question is, do you have adequate life disability and critical illness in place in case of death or illness? Again, that is a whole conversation to itself, but there's 3 key reasons we want to have insurance in place. 1, debt repayment. Do you have any debts that in case there's any death in a family, illness is going to be, you're not going to be able to pay for it. Therefore, do we need something in place? Income replacement, husband and wife, young children. Can the family survive without one or the other spouse? If the answer is no, you need insurance for income replacement. Estate planning. There is ways to utilize insurance to provide additional capital for the next generation. Insurance can also be a fantastic tax planning strategy, but we're not going to get into that right now either. So again, just answer a simple question. Do you have adequate insurance? And if the answer is no, or I don't know, then that's a conversation into itself. Number 9, are your personal and business affairs structured tax effectively? So this is when we're talking about tax planning. Again, I believe it's, Batuan, is it April or May we're going to be talking about taxes specifically?
February.
Oh, February. Okay, I guess next month. So next month, I am going to be hosting a conversation specifically on taxes. And taxes and having your capital structured tax effectively, whether it's personally and in your business, can be an opportunity in itself to create either additional income or lower the amount of income tax you're paying, therefore being able to maintain more of what you're earning. So really looking at if you have investments, are they paying interest income, dividend income, or capital gains? Each of these buckets is taxed differently. Looking at making sure that you are applying for different tax credits and you're applying different tax deductions. And the most common deduction is your RSPs, carrying charges on interest expenses for investments, childcare expenses, credits, public transit amounts, medications or medical tax credits, tuition, and donations. Are you utilizing those to make sure that what you're paying in taxes is minimized? And I would highly suggest to work with a qualified accountant on this as well. Last and not least, one last question. Do you have a current and valid financial, medical, power of attorney, and a will? Again, these 2 pieces of documents are absolutely crucial. And the biggest distinction Power of attorney provides somebody capacity to act on your behalf if you became incapacitated. And you want to make sure you have a financial and a medical power of attorney. That person can go in and manage your affairs at the bank, and they can make medical decisions. Power of attorney will not do anything for you, heaven forbid you or yourself or a loved one passes away. In Canada, in Ontario specifically, I'm going to just speak to Ontario. If you die without a will, your estate has to be probated and processed through courts. And I had a case where I had a very young client during COVID who passed away, and it took his mom 2 years to be appointed by courts as the executor. What that meant is all his investments, all his businesses, and all his accounts were frozen until a executor is appointed, and that took 2 years. And a simple will that is usually a couple of $100 can save you the entire issue. Also, if you have young children, if you don't have a will in place, the government steps in and figures out, based on when they're available through family court, who can look after your children. Again, both things can be avoided if you have a will in place. So if your answer is no to this, you definitely want to have this put into action, into your action plan. So very quickly, I think I'm on time. How are we doing for time? Oh, perfect. Hopefully you found this valuable and informative. What I would urge you to do from here is if you answer no to any of these questions, Batuan over the next, I would say 3 to 4 days, will be reaching out to each one of you. And we'll offer a conversation where we can actually get on the phone with you or through Zoom and guide you through your no's and help you create an action plan to have some of those no's addressed. Ideally, if you want to have yourself considered financially well or financially healthy, you want to have yeses across the board here on this particular checklist. So this is a quick little, am I okay? And if the answer is no, then yes, these items need to be addressed. Again, the only time these courses are valuable if you take action. So we want to urge you strongly to create that action plan that's part of this course and figure out who's going to be the person who's going to assist you and commit to yourself when is the due date you're going to get this done by, so that you can truly see a creation of financial abundance or financial clarity or financial calmness for yourself. I'm going to leave it at that. I hope you guys found it valuable and informative. I'm going to see if there's any specific questions that we can quickly answer, and we're going to wrap it up to be in integrity with our time. But Tuan, is there any questions we can quickly answer?
There are no questions right now.
Awesome.
If not, maybe we can do the raffle.
Yeah. So what we're going to ask you to do, can everybody hear you as well right now? Can you unmute yourself? I'm going to just stop my sharing and we're just going to do a raffle. We have a couple of books to give away. So Batuan is going to just facilitate a raffle. I'm just going to stop sharing this.
As well. Link. You have the link as well.
Uh-oh, where do I have that link?
All right. Go back.
All right, so we are going to do a raffle. Are you going to do it, Batuan?
You can.
Oh, I'm going to do it. Okay. So I'm going to have to stop. All right.
Just click it.
Hey, this is new to me.
Is Joanne here? Is that Jolie?
Is that Jody? Sorry, we're just chatting through. We're gonna do three, right?
Yes.
All right, we're gonna do three. We're gonna close this. I'm gonna do this again. Here we go. Amy,
Amy's here.
beautiful. Congratulations, Amy. Okay, one more, and then we can all go on with our fabulous evenings. And Janet.
Is Janet here?
Okay,
Why don't we do an extra one since we have two people that are not here?
all right, so we're gonna do an extra one.
Yeah. Oh, Janet is here.
Oh, okay, Janet.
It's fine.
Awesome.
Fine.
Thank you, Janet.
It's
We're
the
gonna do
third
one more.
Sania.
Sania. Sania with us?
Yes, she is.
Beautiful. Okay. So what you guys going to receive is a copy of my $1 Million Difference book. Batuan is going to be in touch with you guys to get your addresses, mailing addresses, so we can get that out to you. And I just want to take one more second. So I'm going to stop sharing, put on my camera. There we go. I just want to say, oh, it's 8:01. Look at this. We are perfectly on time. Just want to say thank you very much. Oh, Janet, it's Janet. Hi, Janet. I just want to say thank you so much for your time, everybody. I'm glad, I trust that you guys found this conversation of value. And just want to wish everybody an incredible evening. And we'll be in touch with all of you over the next couple of days. Thank you, everybody.